Shalom, Yasha Allah. First and foremost, I would like to give all glory, honor, and infinite praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rakach, Hadash, the honest beloved elders and the apostles at Great Millstone that taught me this truth. While peace and salutations to all you hopeful elect Akim out there laboring that are pushing this word in truth and in sincerity. This is your brother Amar from the GMS Boise, Idaho camp. And I'm doing this lesson, based on, a few article headlines that I screenshotted that I just want to share, with the brothers, which I know uh, a lot of brothers, we're always watching the news. We're always looking for something to grab and to tie in with prophecy. And, this is just one of those many things that are happening worldwide that seem that they're not affecting us immediately, but down the line in the chain reaction of the supply chain, of the morale, the protection of a country is all what I'm going to, talk about a little bit with these few little bit screenshots. But the first one that I had is 17,000 truck drivers taken off the road for not passing English proficiency requirements under the Trump administration. And these aren't just truck drivers like you're seeing a pickup truck. No, these are semis. These are what carry goods to your grocery stores, to your auto parts stores, different places that deliver materials for construction. Anything that needs to be taken on a road to a store, unless you are a store that's next to a railroad, you're not getting your freight, and I just say that, facetiously because there's no fucking grocery stores next to a railroad, man. Everything is brought in by trucks, so that ultimately is just adding to the supply chain woes, as well as the ultimately the famine that is coming. And I like to go, and I'm going to go to 2nd Ezra 16 and verse 22. Or actually, it's 9 and 22, Salakia. I'm thinking of something else. This is 2nd Ezra 9 and 22. This is, oh, man. Salakia, Yashar Allah. Maybe it was 16 and 22. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to start actually at 21. Yeah, I'm going to start at 21. It says, "Behold, victuals shall be so good cheap upon the earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case. And even then shall evils grow upon the earth, sword, famine, and great confusion." So from the top, behold, victuals, that those are just goods, shall be so good cheap upon the earth. Because you can still go to the grocery store, you can still get DoorDash, you can still get certain services, you can still go get chicken at the grocery store, but ultimately, that's all going to be gone because Babylon the Great gets the reaction of worldwide events. We get hit a little bit later, because there's still ports that are being unloaded, there's still different goods that are in the system, but there's not anything new coming in like there was even a year ago, because the political events that have happened, the tariffs that have come in with this new administration, as well as mainly the war over there in Iran with them cutting off the Strait of Hormuz. That's going to affect everything, and we already see how immediate the effect is, even though we get less than 2% or less than 2% of our oil that comes through the Strait of Hormuz. You saw gas rise up because of the scare, how scared people were and different investors worldwide. So all that is coming for a planned demolition. You don't think that they know that the majority of so-called migrants and people that are just trying to get on a job and get a CDL license, that may not know a trade, but they know how to drive enough to pass the test. They may not speak English or whatever, but Esau is just shooting himself in the foot, because any time that you're messing up your own trade, ultimately the people themselves are going to suffer. But that is, again, what he wants, the people to suffer. Verse 22, "For many of them that dwell upon the earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy." So ultimately it's going to get chaotic to the point where people are going to be unaliving, each other, to get the basic goods that they need to live. So when you understand that a lot of these things are going to happen in your lifetime, you need to know what type of spirit you're going to supposed to be in, because this is just one of many signs that the coming tribulations that's coming is going to be really bad. And I cannot suddenly house is empty. So like, yeah, sure, I'm thinking out loud, but I can't think of that. 6 and 22. See, I was thinking 9 and 22, and then 16 and 22, but 16 and 22 went with it as well. But this is second Ezra's Salakia 6 and 22. And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. And this is the point. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. You know, and those storehouses are your grocery stores as well as your warehouses, because most people don't know that grocery stores only have about 3 days, if that, of food in the grocery stores, of stock. You know, they depend on getting trucks daily to keep their shelves stocked. You know, so when these warehouses, because let's say you have a chain of Walmarts. Okay, well, that chain of Walmarts has a central delivery warehouse to where they stock up really big items, you know, on pallets of different foods and goods and stuff like that coming in. And then from there, from those warehouses, it gets shipped out to the grocery stores. Well, if there's no one able to transfer the goods, if the price of gas is too high or diesel, they're already saying in Australia they're running out of diesel. So ultimately there's going to be no work for Egypt. And that's what's going to lead me to my next scripture. No work for Egypt. This is Isaiah 19 and 15. Neither shall there be any work for Egypt, which the head or tail, branch or rush may do. And the head or tail is talking about from your top CEO down to your laborer that is the janitor, or etc. So I'm going to go to my next screenshot, which we know in the news is going on with the UN having a vote to pass on what is the gravest crime against humanity. This is the UN passes resolution declaring transatlantic slave trade the gravest crime against humanity. But what does that mean for reparations, man? Fuck your reparations, man. We don't want your money. We want your souls, man. We want your bodies. We want your everything, man. And only Yahweh Bashem Yahushai can give that to us. Not no Esau passing some fucking laws, man. Get that through your head, Jake. You're not going to get no reparations on this side. On Wednesday, March 25th, the UN General Assembly in the New York City passed resolution proposed by Ghanaian President John Dramani Mahama, which is probably a Jake, that would formally recognize the slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity. Who else would except Jake, to call that out? The UN General Assembly Hall erupting into applause when it officially passed. And this is what caught my attention to bring this out. It says the resolution received 123 votes, which is only like 190 some countries in the whole world. The resolution received 123 votes in favor, while 3 countries, Argentina, Israel, and the United States, voted against. Wonder why. Gorros pequeños, little hats, big noses, man. Run those countries. And 52 abstained, which means they didn't say yes and they didn't say no. They just didn't want to vote, which is probably the allies. And having no vote is voting against it, pretty much, in my opinion. Because if you're not saying, oh, it's a bad thing, that means you're saying, it's not a good thing, but it's not a bad thing, type thing. You're neutral. There's no such thing as neutrality. That's confusion in Esau's law system. It's either let your yays be yays and your nays be nays. So continuing, and I wanted to just bring this out. I have one more screenshot that I'm going to read about this subject, because that it says that they shall seek to please the poor. Children seek to please poor. This is Job 20 and 10. His children shall seek to please the poor, and his hands shall restore their goods. Ultimately we know that it's Esau, Edom, that's the head of the world. But these other heathen nations, have voted, to recognize what Jake went through here, and that's the transatlantic slave trade, the triangular trade, because you had southern kingdom Judites, Levites, Benjaminites all over the west coast of Africa come over to the Americas, and then from the Americas you had the northern kingdom, because they weren't going back empty. They were not fucking. They just brought slaves over. You think their cargo ship that was completely made to hold and transport slaves is gonna go back empty? Nah, they took whoever from the Americas of the Northern Kingdom, and then they shipped them across the world to Arabia, or to the Arabian land, Ishmaelites lands, to Western Asia, which the world ignorantly calls Europe. So you had Northern Kingdom Jakes going back to the old world. So it's a triangular trade. So this was a very high spiritual, to me, sign, because it shows you that Jake has got it the worst based on all these nations. And we know that Argentina, Israel, and the U.S., they'll say the Hala, the purification by fire, if you know the definition of the word Hala blank means, what happened to those little hats over there in Germany in the 1940s. They'll say that was the gravest crime against humanity, with the most lack of evidence thereof, it even happening. So that's neither here nor there. And I don't want to say too much, because guess what? You can't say too much about that, or your video is going to get flagged. So here we go, man. We're dealing with the devil here. But as these other nations are saying that they're openly admitting that is a horrible thing, Babylon the Great still can't even say sorry. They can't even say, Donald Trump has done so much for the black community. What? By building projects in fucking New York that are shitty as hell, full of asbestos, different chemicals that are known carcinogens that you built Jake communities with, fucked up water lines that they're drinking, the most chemically treated waters, because they ain't got no proper filtration system or a delivery system in the pipes. So Jake is living in the most detestable living conditions to this day, and this next quote talks about reparations, but it gives you just a number, and let me tell you what, the top of the U.S. debt right now, I believe, is like 33 trillion. So this gives you an idea of how much they would owe to the so-called black community, the Southern Kingdom. This is studies attempting to quantify what is owed to black so-called descendants of the enslaved, often place the figure between roughly 12 trillion to 14 trillion, largely based on the racial wealth gap and the value of unpaid labor. Not to mention the inventions, the patents that Esau stole, and the different inventions that were invented by Jake that Esau completely took credit for. It says many generations continue to suffer the exclusion, the racism, because of the transatlantic slave trade, which has left millions separated from the continent and impoverished. And that goes both ways for the northern and the southern kingdom, because all of Israel was in slavery. And Israel, including the southern kingdom, Yashra Allah, the 12 tribes of descendants of Jacob. And this is the world saying this. And I remember I saw a quote. I can't remember how it goes, but there was a list of countries that said they literally stopped themselves multiple times from bombing Babylon the Great, strictly for the Negro, Latino, and Native American populations that are suffering under the hand of the so-called, white man. That's the reason why they didn't, because they know that they would be among the casualties, those that have no, deserving of being, bombed or whatever, like these other countries wanting to attack, But we know at the end of the day, these other countries are heathens, so don't put anything past them. But ultimately, they got more compassion on Jake than Esau, Edom. I'm not putting the heathen up there, but I'll just say that, the heathen outside of, maybe Ishmael and Moab, but Japhet ain't done nothing bad to Jacob on a high level like Ishmael, Moab, and Esau, but nobody does it worse than Esau, because obviously, the close relationship and the losing of the birthright more than anything. So I'm going to go back to that Isaiah 19, because this is this is what it is, man. So another quick news article. This is a lot of information. I kind of just wanted to bring it out there, some key highlights in these last couple days. But this is the USS Harold Ford. This is an aircraft carrier heading to Greece to investigate if 30-hour laundry fire was deliberately caused by crew members to end their mission, which we know it was. We know that things were shoved down toilets to get them clogged. We know that fires were started. They say 600 sailors were without beds because of what was going on in that fire. Because of that situation that happened in the laundry room, which they say wasn't a laundry fire at all. It was an attack and a drone that actually hit this aircraft carrier. But everything is speculation, everything's hearsay. But we know at the end of the day, the main point is that we know that the sailors were plugging their toilets. We know that the sailors were blocking sewage lines. We know that the sailors were shoving whole mop heads down the pipe so that they would get turned around. So starting a fire, that's not too much further from what they were already doing. And that's going to lead me to my next scripture, and I'm going to end it out on this. But this is Isaiah 19:16. In that day shall Egypt be like unto women, and it shall be afraid and fear because of the shaking of the hand of the Lord Yahweh of hosts, which he shaketh over it. We know that's talking about them being scared, ultimately from the judgment of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, but when Yahushai cracks those clouds, but as well as, these calamities, tribulations, and wars that are on the horizon, that these new generation that just joined for a Camaro or a cheap college joined, not expecting that they'd actually have to go to war, So I'm going to get this in Jeremiah 51 and 30. It says, the mighty men of Babylon have forborne to fight. They have remained in their holds. Their might hath failed. They became as women. They have burned her dwelling places. Her bars are broken. So the point being in the top of the scripture, I'm going to get that Jeremiah 51 and 30 in the NLT. This is Jeremiah 51 and 31 in the NLT. This is the news is passed from one runner to Salakia. I meant 30. Salakia, this ad. Salakia, come on. Here we go. Jeremiah 51 and 30. It says, her mightiest warriors no longer fight. They stay in their barracks, their courage gone. They have become like women. The invaders have burned the houses and broken down the city gates. So ultimately, you're going to have nobody to want to defend this place because of the amount of fear. Because they haven't been raised in the warrior mindset like the Iranians, the Chechens, the different Ishmaelites, soldiers that are ready to go blow themselves up for 70 virgins around a C4 vest, man. Some crazy stuff like that. No, they joined for free food because their dad told them so. Because they didn't want to go to the workforce because they didn't know what they wanted to do in life. They didn't choose a career. They wanted cheap college. They wanted, a Camaro, whatever it is, man. These warriors, so-called, are not warriors like they used to be here in Babylon the Great. Even 5 years ago, because under the Biden administration and what happened during COVID, a lot of the people that were really loyal, patriotic Americans that fought for so-called freedom and the Constitution, they got weeded out. So that again weakens the morale, the leadership, and ultimately the structure and stability of the United States. Because never before have you heard of a mutiny that happened like this on a modern ship. Like they say, they're going to investigate a 30-hour laundry fire, which left 600 crew members without beds, which is a telltale sign that these Babylonians do not want to fight. So Lord willing, before I ramble on too much more, because all this is good news to us, man. And like I always say, it is not our kingdom that is falling, it is their kingdom that is falling. For our kingdom to come, theirs must fall. So Lord willing, that this lesson was edifying unto the elect. Till next time, I would like to give all glory, honor, and infinite praises to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Chachadash, and double honors to beloved elders and the apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. While peace and salutations to all you hopeful elect document out there laboring, that are pushing this word in truth and in sincerity. Till next time, Lord willing, Shalom.